Today we are back on Soch Talk Train of Thought, the series of an episode with Mr. Virendra Gupte, who is a consultant, corporate trainer and the company director, and his long tenure with Tata International Limited for 37 years. It's a great insight to what we are getting for our Tea Talk audience exclusively on this Tea Talk Soch ki. So it's a great insight to what you have given for Tea Talk audience and your journey for 37 years by being part of Tata International. Now, when we talk in terms of as the existence of corporates which are concerned, the basic business ethics which are there, that plays a very crucial role. According to you, like, how do you define the ethics like?
I think in the world of today, one differentiator which matters the most to human societies and to the communities is how does the world look at you as a nation, as an industry, as a company, as an individual professional who work in the company at whatever may be the level. In terms of are you a trustworthy entity or not? In terms of integrity, honesty. And I think to my mind, therefore, that word trust plays a very critical role. All things being equal, technology being a great leveler. Just to give an example, so many companies in the world who manufacture plethora of products, offer services, etc. Why does a customer or a consumer pick up a particular product of a particular brand vis-a-vis the rivals and competitors? Now, for example, let's say in a room air conditioner, every single company, whether it's an Indian company or a foreign entity, they will offer the same 5-year warranty for the compressor, for example. Okay, the after-sales service and would be something similar in terms of the fine print.
Correct.
Actually, how the after-service manifests, we don't know.
Correct.
But what would be the trigger for the customer? The customer will be either by recommendations or by, let's say, referrals. And more importantly, it will be the company and the brand. And what does the company and the brand stands for?
Correct.
And all things being equal, the customer would be inclined to buy or patronize a product or a service based on the company's background and more importantly, its marketplace reputation.
Correct.
And therefore, that differentiator is the key aspect in the world of today. And therefore, when we speak of a business ethics, in fact, it is like speaking about the universe. So, when we say the word ethics, it actually comes from a Greek word ethos, which means character. And therefore, in a very simplistic manner to explain, ethics is nothing but a let's say a set of standards, rules, some norms, a way of life, which has been developed, maybe evolved by human societies over a period of time. They have been sort of evolved by them and then endorsed by them with respect to what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, and so on. But when you look at the whole the whole journey of ethics, values, with reference to philosophy, theology, religion, etc., those norms have also undergone a change over a period of time. So what was supposed to be very rigid and or those are the norms of that particular era, like for example in the Indian context, you look at child marriages,
Correct.
Right? Look at sati. Now these were abhorrent practices,
Correct.
right? And today, of course, the community and the society is so broad-minded, supported by the judgments and judicial pronouncements of the courts, that women can visit temples,
Correct.
and so on. So I think the society has undergone that sort of a transformation.
Yeah.
And that also percolates in all walks of life, including trade, commerce, industry, and so on. Now, the only unfortunate part as far trade, commerce, industry is concerned, and I'm making a generic statement here, is that we, as a part of the ecosystem and trade, commerce, industry, and business, we suffer from a trust deficit, which means the community at large, the society at large, does not trust us.
Correct.
Right? As much as the a common man on the street will trust his parents, for example, family members, or a family doctor or a teacher,
Correct.
for example.
Correct.
as compared to somebody who is in a public service, a law enforcement agency, or those of us who are in trade, commerce, and industry and business. And therefore, that is where the dilemma is. That how do we therefore earn the respect and the trust of the community to which we belong, and we are an integral part of the society. And therefore, to my mind, if you ask me, I have a wider connotation and definition to this thought, and that is, it is not about mere business ethics in terms of having a code of conduct, and therefore you have certain procedures and practices in place, like a whistleblower policy, or a prevention of sexual harassment policy, or a gifts policy, or anti-bribery, anti-corruption policy, which of course are now necessarily mandated, right? But in many companies, for example, they may be an act of tokenism. They may be just tick box, having that tick box syndrome.
Correct.
And therefore, to my mind, it is very important to understand that whereas regulators will give you license to manufacture and operate,
correct,
and we as organizations should have more knowledgeable in terms of resources, talent, competencies, and also the wherewithal to get approvals in any geography of the world. To my mind, the most important thing is the social license to operate. Now you might wonder, what is the distinction? I think that's a very important distinction between a regulatory approval for you to operate a particular business in sector or industry or any geography, vis-a-vis a social license to operate. Now, who will give you the social license to operate? Not any regulator or any government.
Correct.
Social license to operate is given to you by the community.
Correct.
In terms of the goodwill, in terms of that level of comfort that you as an organization, you as a brand, you as an institution have that support of the community. Now, Doctor, you would have observed and read that in any different parts of the world, including India, there has been resistance of a particular community against a particular company in the world.
Correct.
For setting up some manufacturing operations in some distant locations, whether it's an oil and gas company, let's say a mining company, or whether a company involved in heavy engineering, for example, and so on and so forth. Now the question to ask is, the root question to ask is, why is the community up in arms? Why there's a hostility? Okay, and I think that the answer to that is the reputation that precedes that company in terms of its practices.
Correct.
Okay, and I think to my mind that is the whole essence of when we talk of ethics and values.
Good.
And I think they are very, very key and critical in the world of today.
Good. I think since in Tata International, they were 37 years and it's known as a more ethical company. They follow the ethics norms very minutely. Now, since you being there for 37 years, what is the importance of ethics management process in a business like?
I think I would like to, sort of preface this my comment by quoting basically the value systems and the ethos and the legacy of our founder Jamshedji Tata. When he set up his company in 1868, when India was under the British rule, and he had no inkling that how the company, the nascent stage which he is sort of forming, how it will actually grow over a period of time. And therefore, he had some set thoughts in his mind. And one of his key thought was that the business exists, not on a standalone basis, but basically because you are part of the community. And therefore, the role of the business is to serve the community.
Correct.
And that was the guiding principle and the mantra of our founder, which percolated over a period of time from 1868 till today. And therefore, we live by that legacy in terms of what is good for the country is good for the company.
Correct.
And therefore, the businesses in which we are over the last many decades, the businesses will remain as a group, will all be those businesses which will be conducive to human societies.
Correct.
Not only to our country, but wherever the group has a footprint in any part of the world. And therefore, it has been embedded. In fact, before it became fashionable to talk about CSR, and now that is mandated under the Companies Act.
Correct.
Way back in the 1970s or 80s, it was embedded in the group. And in fact, the first pioneering initiative was taken in Tata Steel. When the memorandum and articles of the company was amended to bring in CSR as one of the activities which Tata Steel was doing right from day one. In fact, you may be aware that many of the labor practices and the labor regulations and rules and laws were basically part of the IR and HR practices in Tata Steel in Jamshedpur.
Correct.
And when the country became free later, some of these were absolutely replicated in the national legislation.
Correct.
So that has been the pioneering effort of the group in that sense. And therefore, we are conscious about this. And therefore, in this discussion, I would humbly say that I am just one of the foot soldiers. Right? I continue to be the foot soldier of the group.
But it all depends upon the kind of a culture which is so strong, like you abide in that same culture, and then the foundations are built on those bases, like.
True. So therefore, the conscious decision taken at the group level, and therefore it was institutionalized later in the sense that the articulation of that Tata Code of Conduct, and then how to really drive it. And therefore, I felt blessed that in my career, I was nominated by the leadership team to head that function as a Chief Ethics Counselor. And I don't think that it was a KRA responsibility. I think it was a noble task entrusted to me. And I feel blessed in that sense, because I had then the opportunity to really, if you ask me what was my role was more like an evangelist. You chant the mantra, so whether it is from the holy scriptures of Guru Granth Sahib or whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Holy Quran or the Bible. And therefore it is something similar here, that the value systems which you stand for, right, which is a non-negotiable aspect. How do you embed in the organization, right? Number one, in terms of how does it reflect in your vision, mission and your value systems? Are the values on paper laminated neatly in the reception room of your office, or they get translated and becomes part of the DNA of the ecosystem of the organization? And I think that's very important.
Okay.
And therefore, the other part is that many companies in the world will have their own very neatly compiled code of conduct and our standard operating procedures, etc. and so on. To my mind, the most important thing is that how it is percolated and becomes a part of the DNA, right? So when you walk into your factory, for example, does the Darwan of your main gate also resonates the Tata values as much as the chairman in the board meeting and the board of directors, etc. So I think that's very, very vital and important. Now, therefore, the role which I had to therefore play was to bring about that level of sensitization within the group, within the company itself, amongst employees, right up to the shop floor level in the manufacturing operations within the country, global operations of the company, multiple languages, okay? And then the most important aspect is that if you are, if that is your moral compass, that is your North Star, right? And that is how you will be conducting your business, where there will be zero tolerance to bribery, corruption, malpractices, economic crimes, offenses, all those aspects of malfeasance and non-compliances, dodging the law, for example, and so on. If that is so, then how do you ensure that your partners also are on the same footing? So one of the key roles for the organization, the leaders, business vertical heads, and all of us, was basically to ensure that your customers, for example, your supplier vendors, third-party service providers, your channel partners, your financial partners, all your stakeholders, in short, are we also aligned to them? Number one, are they aligned to your way of life or your thoughts? And therefore, there should not be any conflicts. Right? So therefore, in our marketing departments, the most harrowing role was for the marketing teams to ensure that the proper due diligence is done in terms of selection of customers. Right? There are many businesses which we have foregone, even at a government's level in certain countries, which I will not name, and also with certain entities in the world, where we were prima facie not very comfortable in terms of the business practices of those entities. Either as customers or as supplier vendors. Why? Because it conflicted with our and there was no alignment to that extent. And therefore, to that extent, somebody else would have said you have missed some very lucrative business opportunities. But we were answerable to our own conscience in that sense. The organization conscience, the value systems we stand for, the ethos which we inherited. And from that perspective, you do your best. It's not that you don't blunder or make mistakes. It's not that everything is happens without any mishaps, etc. There may be inadvertently some lapses happening, but at least you can go home and sleep peacefully. Okay, and I think that's the larger message, and that is the role you play, and that was a little humble role I played by wearing that hat as the chief ethics counselor in driving. And then, of course, the related issues, aspects relating to prevention of sexual harassment, equal opportunity employer, inclusiveness, issues about diversity, which get embedded in that. And then the most important, progression from is corporate governance practices, and then leading you to the sustainable model of business.
Correct.
Inclusiveness. What do you do for the society at large?
Correct.
And therefore you are accountable to the larger society. And therefore, if I have to summarize this, it is about from the Socrates view that ethics need not be taught because it is embedded in a family value system.
Correct.
In your sanskars. When you speak of dharma, adharma, niti, aniti. Okay, and then what religion tenets teaches you. All religion teach you the same path of righteousness.
Correct.
And then you come to the modern view, which we replicate in our corporate life, in terms of what is good and bad, right? But we go beyond that, and in terms of the means and ends nexus. What means you adopt to achieve a particular end? You want to, appear for an exam and pass the exam, but do you adopt copying as a means to achieve the end?
Yeah.
In short.
Correct.
Right? And then responsible behavior. We talk about sustainability. We speak about, in short, if I to sort of conclude this point, from mere tick box compliance to commitment. And from commitment to creating societal value. What difference do you make to the community and societies at large?
Correct.
Right? And then we look at a maturity level in terms of aligning that to, let's say, United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, UN Global Compact related issue, and so on and so forth. So therefore, each of the companies in the group will be aligning themselves to the larger good. What we speak of societal good. What we may speak about, in short, doctor, I would say wealth and welfare, do they go hand in hand?
Correct.
So it's about conscious capitalism. It's about stakeholder accountability. It's about creating not only shareholder value, but more importantly in today's context, creating stakeholder value.
Good, great. I think no doubt being part of a larger organizations like Tata International Limited, I think as when we started our conversation, I said, I think the entire knowledge and the ethical practices which are the foundations on what this larger organization stands, there's a great learning. And all those insights, all those practices from an expert like Mr. Virendra Gupte, who is sharing his experience and the insights to ensure our target audience get more and more insights about it so that they can follow the best ethical practices while they're working for an organization. If you like Mr. Virendra Gupte's episode, just go to www.ttalk.net, subscribe like the channel as much as you can. Also catch up with Mr. Virendra Gupte in our next episode of ttalk ek Boond Soch ki. Till then, thank you. Then again go to www.ttalk.net, subscribe like the channel as much as you can. So thanks a lot for being part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor.